All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Next Level by Association Virtual. This is the place every week where I bring on a guest of honor, and these are people that are just super people, first and foremost, and then secondly, their story is amazing. And this is a gentleman that I had the opportunity to meet a couple of years ago in LA at Kyle Wilson's mastermind, or his inner circle. And Kyle, if you don't follow Kyle, you want to follow him. He's a great guy, a dear friend, does a lot of great things. He was Jim Rohn's business partner for the last 18 years of Jim's life, and just a phenomenal human being. And he does this inner circle, and he invited me to come and speak at his inner circle. And while I was there, I got an opportunity to meet some amazing people. And one of them is this gentleman, Sheldon Horowitz. Sheldon is just man, wait till you hear his story, but wait till you hear his heart. This guy he has been through some stuff, and he's come out on the other side such a better human being. And I remember him coming up to me afterwards and talking to me, and we just shared this time, and it was really a great time. But one of the coolest things was the opportunity this last summer. While I was in Idaho, he happened to be in Idaho, and he and his family met with me up in McCall, and we just got to spend a few hours at the lake, and it was just such a blast. But Sheldon, man, I was so impressed with you the couple of days I met with you and spent with you in Inner Circle. But just even the course of this last 2 years, I've just become more impressed with the man that you are. And I want to go back to right when you came up to me and you were telling me a little bit about your story. You weren't always on the right path.
No, no, not at all. And gosh, it's been actually just hit a little over 15 years ago, actually last month, where my 15th anniversary of hitting rock bottom. And yeah, definitely been an amazing journey thus far, and nowhere near towards the end of it by any means.
Amen.
I'll share my picture of where I was at back then and nowadays with my family and everything. And I learned not to say before and after, but before and during is kind of how I look at it. You know, that
Nice.
every day we wake up is truly a blessing,
Mm,
and
mm.
just looking forward to many more opportunities in life.
Yeah, I love that. So let's go back to that 15 years ago. What was going on in your life during that time and prior to that? And then what was that rock bottom, and what was that pivot, that turning point for you?
Absolutely. So thanks for letting me share. I would say there was probably about a year long uh, descent from where I was at until I hit rock bottom. And I'll start off with what rock bottom looked like for me was basically sitting in a jail cell in Long Beach, California, in the Long Beach County Jail there, and spending believe it was 5 or 6 days there. I celebrated my 23rd birthday in that nice cell,
Mm,
and kind of what led me there. I'll kind of go in reverse about a year or so before. Um, when I was younger, I thought I was going to be an accountant when I grew up. That was because I'm a numbers person. That always seemed to be the most logical place for me to wind up. And this was early 2000s when I finished high school and started college, and kind of right the middle of the beginning of like a huge boom in real estate in Southern California where I grew up. And housing prices just kept going up and up and up. And I kind of felt that there was really no chance for me to ever own my own house and live a good life and live the American dream. I just really felt disenfranchised from what everybody was talking about was possible. It just didn't seem possible for me.
mm,
So, needless to say, it all kind of started where I fell into a really bad gambling addiction, and decided to help myself to company funds from the job that I was working at the time. And I think I did that for maybe 3 or 4 months or so until I got caught. And from that point, I was pretty much homeless kind of the last month or so of that part of my life. Basically, lived in my car, kind of couch hop a little bit, and then lost my car. It kind of broke down a few hours away from home. So I was like truly homeless, you know, didn't have even a car to sleep in. So basically I managed to get by, and every weekend I would basically rent a car for myself, go hang out with some friends, and turn the car back in Sunday evening and just get by for the next week. Well, the week that I got fired from my job for theft, I had nowhere else to go. I wasn't allowed around my family, and they knew what I was doing. They had kind of caught on to me before I got officially in trouble. And you know, I decided, well, I'm just gonna rent a car for the weekend. I have enough money for that. Well, a weekend pretty much turned into 6 months of keeping the car and not really working at all. I think I maybe put in 2 or 3 days of like labor ready kind of work here and there, just to make sure I had enough money to do what I wanted to do. And so I spent about 6 months with that car, and bounced around, and lived in Long Beach, California for that part of my life. And I think it was early November of 2005. I was out late at night, of course, up to no good, and had 6 or 8 police cars pretty much pull me over at gunpoint. And the rental car company wanted their car back at that point. And you know, they I had all but like fallen off the traditional map for those 6 months. So no phone number, no address, bank account closed for fraud. So I was just going about having a good time. And you know, I think it was 2:30 or 3 in the morning that I got pulled over. They took me to Long Beach jail, and wound up there. You know, the first night I was just out of it. You know, I kind of blacked out the whole getting pulled over part of the experience, and getting drug out of the car and guns drawn and all that.
Mm.
But you know, I'm sitting in jail, and the first night or the first day, all I could think about was, well, geez, this is like as good as my life has ever been. You know, I'm dating a couple ladies right now, and this is like, I just feeling like top of the world. And now I'm in here. And I woke up the next morning, and it all just kind of hit me, you know, the severity of what was going on. You know, I could be 5 or 10 years that I could be sitting in jail for grand theft auto was what I was booked for. And I remember sitting in there thinking, gosh, you know, this is not at all what the rap music I was listening to at the time said it would be like. You know, you watch the music videos and it's like glamorous, you know, everything's going on great, partying, jewelry, cars, all that good stuff. And it is not at all like that when you're sitting in there. And I said to myself, as I'm watching this big clock on the outside of the building tick ever so slowly, seemed like it never even moved. Then that was the only thing I could see out of the window. I said to myself, you know, one day when I get out, whatever it looks like, I'm going to let as many people know that it is not at all cool in here, that it is not this glamorous, fun situation in here like it seems like when you watch a music video, or when you listen to music, or kind of watch TV. And needless to say, I was released from Long Beach jail after about 5 or 6 days. And I did have another day to spend in confinement in Glendale jail. So I went there, and well, they took me there, and I did that. And I got out of Glendale jail. I had I think a whopping $40 to my name in my pocket at that point. I knew for sure that I was not welcome back in Long Beach where I was living before. So I did not want to go back down there. I took a couple buses, went back to my mom's house, and luckily she let me move in, and kind of start all over from there. And you know, there's a lot in between then and now, but that was, to answer your question, that was where I was at that point. And you know, my mindset was so warped. It was just, it was horrible. You know, looking back on it, you know, when I got out of jail and I went to the bus, you know, to catch the bus to my mom's house, I, you know, went to the liquor store, and I'm like, well, what do you buy when you know, what do you do when you get out of jail? So I bought an energy drink, and I bought a pack of Black and Milds, because that's what they did in the music videos. So sat on the back of the bus like a tough guy with my release papers in one hand, you know, my shoelaces over my shoulder, and just sat there like, just looking around, didn't even know what was going on. But I just, yeah, and by God's grace, I wound up safe and given a second chance to start all over. So
It's crazy. And I remember when you were standing there in the room at the hotel, and we had just finished, and you came up and started telling me that story. I'm like, whoa, what? When was this? I mean, it was just amazing to hear it, and just hearing it again. I'm like, oh man, I remember you saying that. When what was mom like during this time? I mean, she let you move back in, so obviously she was compassionate and wanted to help. But what was she like during this time? Was she visiting you? Was she talking to you on the phone? What was going on?
no, no, not at all. I mean, I kind of consider that 6 months away from work and living in Long Beach. That was, I kind of look at it as my 6 month sabbatical that I decided to take at the time. And I think I went and visited her like once, and I'm pretty sure it was to get some money from her.
Mm,
And I think my excuse was I needed some boots for my job that I had for one day, and I went and visited her one time, and that was the gist of it. I completely disconnected from family at that point. All of my friends that I had and everything, I just moved off and started zero. And that was kind of refreshing, starting from zero, because you can be whoever you want to be.
yeah.
And you know it was a good concept to learn, and that's helped me in other areas of life, remembering that when you go into a room that no one knows you, you can be whoever you want to be. And
Mm,
when you wake up every day, you can be a brand new person, brand new decisions, brand new mindset, whole new way of looking at things. And it is a double-edged sword, because you can very easily fall back into old way of thinking,
yeah.
with that. But I've learned, as long as I use that for the positive, and look at every day as a new day, as a new opportunity, as cliche as that sounds, it really can be whatever I want it to be. So
Right. I really appreciate that, because I think that there's a lot of people right now that are like, okay, well, life was grand, before COVID, or grand, 10 years ago when I was on top of the world. And then, and all of a sudden, now it's not so grand for them, and they're struggling. And they're trying to figure out, well, is it going to get better from here? And maybe they're not sitting in a jail cell. Maybe they're not, facing time, but maybe they are. And, maybe mentally they're facing that time. What do you say to those people that, like, I don't know if it's going to get any better now?
I, I think it's very important to be compassionate and understanding, first and foremost, because nobody people don't receive what you're sharing, when you just come from kind of a jaded place.
Mm,
And it's very easy to be in a good situation and share with people that aren't, that, hey, this too shall pass, everything will get better.
right.
And when I was on the other side of it, it's like, yeah, easy for you to say.
Yeah.
So it will get better, this too shall pass. I look at one of my Jim Rohn quotes that I love is, for things to get better, you have to get better.
Hmm.
And the universe, God, whatever you believe, does things for us that we are not capable of doing for ourselves so many times.
Yeah.
And these challenging times that we're all going through right now, the specifics of the challenge are going to be different for all of us, but it's important to remember that we all face it, and it's what we do with it. This another Jim quote: The same wind blows upon us all. It's not the direction of the wind; it's the set of the sails. The set
Mhm.
of the sails that determine where we are and where we wind up. So
Amen.
I try to share that with people, and look for small victories along the way. Small win, small win, small win leads to a big win.
Mm,
Uh, Being grateful is huge, and reminding myself to be grateful for the very small things as well in life, because when people are struggling,
mm,
sometimes those smallest things are like huge victories, and they don't see it. We don't see it because all we're worried about is what we don't have.
mm.
So remaining relatable to everybody, I think is important, and just being genuine, and that's something I really respect and appreciate about our times and our talks together, Bob, is your ability to do that.
Mm.
And that's something that, it's a conscious thing to do. And it's something I strive to achieve. So.
Wow. Well, thank you for those words. I appreciate that. You know, I can't even imagine, you know, getting out of jail, having embezzlement against you, having car theft or grand theft, all of this, and then saying, okay, now how am I going to get a job? And you had some great people that came alongside of you and believed in you. Who were those people, and how did they show their belief in you?
Well, definitely first two would be my dad and my mom. My mom was nice enough to let me move back into their house. I wasn't at the beginning. I wasn't. She had moved from where I grew from our house where I was raised at, so I wasn't in my old bedroom, but I was essentially in my old bedroom. So started square one. She was kind enough to give me a shot to get my life back together. For the first couple weeks, I was just in a daze, though. I moved back in, and I spent most of my time watching scary movies and smoking a lot and just hanging out. And about 2 weeks into it, which would have been right around Thanksgiving time that year, my parents are separated, but my dad came over and said, "Hey, I know you're looking for a job." Which in reality, I wasn't really looking for a job, but I kind of figured that was my cue. I should probably get off my butt and do something with myself. And he said, "Hey, the company I've been at for a couple of years, they're hiring. They pay hourly wage, and you sit on the phone and talk to people all day." So the hourly that they paid back then was $9.50 an hour. I never made that much money in my life, so I was really happy to just have a chance to come in and do the job. And at the beginning, I was horrible at it. I had no idea what I was doing. It was like an entry level sales job with a lot of cold calling all day.
Wow.
And the first couple of weeks was horrendous. And I was so bad at it. I couldn't read a script and didn't know how to hold a conversation with people. My confidence was zero. And doing a sales job with no confidence does not go over so well. I was fortunate enough that pretty quickly I saw some people, though, that were achieving like worthwhile things in their life based on working at the company. And I just believed in myself at that point. I had never been around a place where people were living that kind of life, that they owned houses and had their own cars and had money put away and were vacationing and living the quote unquote American dream. And I saw that and got really addicted to it. I obsessed on that 24/7. Whether I was working or not, that's all I thought about. And if I were to look back and really say, hey, was there one defining moment that changed everything? It would be December of 06, when the owner of the company held a goal seminar, like a goals training class for us that day. And beginning of the month, and it was an optional class, and I think it's probably a half hour long. And I learned things that I never even knew existed, that you could set goals, that you could put things on paper, that how your subconscious mind works, and how and why we're programmed the way we are. And it just kind of like everything made sense at that point. And I never looked back. I still have those same goals saved from 2007. I didn't even change the timestamp on them once. So I could see December 1, 06, I took the time to sit down and write some goals and put 5 goals on paper. And one of my 5 goals was just to wake up every day and love life, which, 15 years in 13 years in hindsight, it seems like, well, what do you mean? Like, looks like you love life every day. It wasn't always like that. I didn't always love waking up. I didn't always love getting out of bed and doing what my responsibilities were. So yeah, that would be, someone who believed in me, was that gentleman, Rick Rusin, founder of our company, that believed in a whole room full of people, with a lot of second chance people at our company. And yeah, that was just eye-opening to learn these concepts.
And you're still at that same company?
Yeah, absolutely. I just celebrated 15 years here.
And you have like set records. You have done really, really well. So I know it's tough to brag on ourselves, but you've really accomplished a lot. So tell us some of the things that you've experienced in that period of time, now that you've been employed this long and with the same company, and having that guy as a mentor and believing in you. What are some of the things you've experienced since then?
Wow. I mean, the list is very, very long, and they're all blessings in my life. And geez, I started out at the very, very bottom as a struggling new person, struggling minimum wage, hourly cold caller, which if any of you listening to this have ever done sales, know that that is a very tough job, picking up the
Brutal.
phone
It's
and,
brutal.
it's all business to business, but it could be anywhere from 125 to 200 plus phone calls in a given day, ton of rejection. And if you don't have a lot of confidence, which I had zero when I first started, you get beat up by like 5 calls into it. At 7 in the morning, you're already wishing the day was over.
Yeah,
So
the only thing I think is worse than cold calling on the phone is having to door knock. I mean, between those two, that's it.
absolutely. And so some things that I've been fortunate enough to do. I graduated to becoming an account manager, account representative of a company. From there, I got into becoming like an assistant team leader, then a full-fledged team leader, and been fortunate enough to do a lot of mentoring and coaching over these last, I'd say, 10 years or so of it. As far as sitting down with employees that work with me and teaching them some of the lessons that I learned, as far as how to write goals, putting them down on paper, affirmations, positive mental attitude, accountability, all those sorts of things. So to me, some of my biggest things that I can say are accomplishments are what those people have been able to do, from buying houses to moving out on their own to getting their life together, things like that. And I learned a saying years ago, and I think it gets credited to Harry Truman, if my memory serves me correct, which is that it's amazing what you can accomplish when you don't care who gets the credit.
Amen.
And that just really resonated with me because I can be a very talkative person, but by nature I'm pretty introverted, pretty shy, and I'm not much for the spotlight. I just want to contribute. I just want to be part of the result, part of the team. And I learned that on a How to Develop the Mind of Einstein CD series from Ron White, and I listened to that series of CDs over and over and over again. And that was one of those lines that just stuck with me. It's like, wow, this is who I am. This actually, I'm okay with that. That I don't want credit. I don't need the credit. I just want to be part of their story. That when they share their testimony, that hey, if my name gets dropped on that testimony, all the better. If not, all the better just as well. Just knowing that my belief that hey, that the big man upstairs is always looking, and I want to be happy with who I am. And if there was a moment maybe 8 or 10 years ago, or a little longer than that even, which for someone in their mid-20s to have this realization is I don't know, I found it to be kind of unique, which is, sorry, our power just went out. Lights went out, which is that if I didn't wake up tomorrow, would I be happy with the conversation I have with our maker? And I found that by asking myself that regularly and taking actions that are in alignment with what that I would be proud with, that wow, everything is just so different. It's just like I feel like I'm in my zone, constantly when I'm serving other people.
Well, shortly after we met, you were in a car accident, correct?
Yes.
And that was, I didn't even know that you were in the car accident until after the fact, a little while. But that was, I mean, you're married, you have a great family. I've had the opportunity to meet them, just beautiful, wonderful wife and kids. And but when this accident happened, tell us about that, because I didn't know until after the fact how bad it really was.
Yeah, absolutely. This accident was, I believe, about 2.5 years ago, April of 18, if my memory serves me correctly. And it was mid-morning. I was on the way to Costco to pick up some last minute dessert for a team lunch I was hosting that day. and freeway stopped. I slammed on my brakes and made it just in time. And the person behind me, I don't think even saw, and plowed into me at full speed, maybe 65, 70 miles an hour. Um, you know, luckily, fortunately, I was in a full size sedan at that point. Um, the whole story behind how I wound up in that car. But I was knocked unconscious for maybe 5 or 10 minutes. The ambulance came, and I remember opening my eyes one time, seeing a big crack in the windshield, and it was just too much to even process, and I just knocked back out at that point.
Mm.
They took me out of the car, got me into the ambulance, and I remember they looked at my shirt and they saw my place of employment on my shirt and asked if that's where I worked. And I said, yeah. I had no idea what day it was, what time of the day it was, or anything. And they're like, oh, well, it's 10:45 on Wednesday morning. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have a taco truck coming to work and no one else knows it's coming. Can you call my boss and let her know so she can facilitate? They did that, and well, is there anyone else you want to call? Yeah, please call my wife. And so they called her like 3 or 4 times, and she didn't answer the first few times because it came from an unknown number. And so I heard them leave her a message, which was horrible, thinking that us with a little over 1-year-old newborn at home, or 1-year-old baby at home, she's there taking care of the baby, and gonna get this message. She calls back within a minute or two, or picks up the second or third time, whatever it was, and they tell her the story, what happened. Her and my dad met me over at the hospital, and I was there for 2 days. They were gonna send me home after the first night, but I couldn't even walk. Shooting pains all down my leg, broken finger in a few places, dislocated finger, and whatnot. My memory was kind of shaky for a month or two. But yeah, that was, gosh, that was in April, and it took until November of that year though when it all hit me. I was at the Ziegler Company in Texas doing one of my seminars there, and was talking to Tom Ziegler, and he said, "Hey brother, I'm just so glad you're able to make it. I saw the pictures online. We've been praying for you." And I'm like, this was actually, and it just all hit me. I'm in this place, and there's something to be said about being around people that you look up to,
Mm-hmm.
and people that have walked the walk that you want to walk, or that you're in the process of walking. And being around someone like Tom Ziegler just is like a magical thing. It's just, yeah, hard to even put into words. And it all hit me that I said, Tom, this was probably the best thing that ever happened to me. And he looks at me shocked. He's like, well, what do you mean? He's like, you're almost killed. I said, yeah, I was home for work for 2 months, and I spent more time with my 1-year-old daughter in those 2 months than I had in her first 15 months combined. Mm-hmm. I was just work, leaving the house before she would wake up, getting home late afternoon, early evening, and mind still racing, and maybe spending an hour a day with her, and barely even being mentally or emotionally there for that time that we were there together. And I figured that was the universe's way of doing for me what I was obviously not able to do for myself. So that really gave me a whole new perspective on what's important in life, and removing myself from things that aren't, and being able to check out when I leave here. When I leave the office, I check out, and to the best of my ability, leave it here. And when I go home, I do my very, very best to be fully there, emotionally, fully there, mentally, fully there, physically. And yeah, so it was a really bad accident. I was probably inches or a few miles an hour or a different car away from not being here today. Wow. But I made it, so there's a reason I'm here. And that was took, like I said, it took about 6-7 months for that all to click in, where that lesson really resonated and really made sense to me at that point.
I remember when you reached out to me after that, and you were telling me, and one of the comments that really just struck in my head, and I'm not saying exactly the way you said it, so I'm paraphrasing, but you made the comment that while you were laying there, you realized that you needed to finish things that you had started. Do you remember that comment?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I remember going, yeah, and then you're like, and so I need to re-engage, I need to do this, I need to do, and I'm thinking, what a powerful thing for you to even be cognizant. I mean, here your life was, almost cut short. You've got your family, everything, and to be thinking about there are things that I needed to complete that I started. What brought that on? And I mean, how has that transformed your life since then? It's got to be monumental.
Yeah, absolutely. It's sometimes things just come to us at almost in spite of our own self. I'm such a big believer that we are nothing but the vessel
Mm,
to transport ideas that need to come through. And when we're given that calling, when those thoughts come to us, that they're energy. And somewhere along the way too, I kind of started to understand the whole energy concept and realizing that, well, hey, it's not me. So again, it goes back to, it's not my quote unquote idea. It's this is the universe's idea that they're looking for the right person or the right vessel to share that information. And if I don't step into that and own it, then it's just going to go to someone else.
mm,
And it's just going to take more time for that to become reality, for that goodness to go out into the world, and realizing that, hey, it's not something that I'm doing. I'm just a participant. I'm
mm.
nothing but a pixel in the masterpiece of the world, when it comes down to it. And you know finishing things I started has been huge for me. Learning to say no has been real powerful as well, and that is a daily discipline. And I fall short in that area many times, being very overzealous. But I just so much easier in life when I say no to things that I really don't want to do or that aren't in alignment, or no, but not right now. But if that changes, I'll let you know. That
Mm,
that's
mm,
that's that's one of my favorite responses in those situations. And you know, yeah. So
mm.
that's been huge for me though, is to be conscious of where I'm at while I'm there,
Yeah.
and consciously go to those places and
Mm,
leave these things behind, and have my daily affirmations and have a gratitude list. Look at what I'm grateful for as well. that's
mm.
that's huge. That always puts me in a much better place.
Wow. Those are some powerful lessons, and unfortunately, God gets our attention in unique ways. If we're not giving it to him in one way, he'll make sure that he gets our attention. So I'm glad that he did, because I know the impact that you've had on my life. And then just like when you came up to McCall, and we spent some time in Idaho, just the opportunity to meet your family and those kind of things. I think back and I go, you know, we haven't had a lot of time to spend. We spent those 2 days together at Kyle's, but we haven't spent a lot of time together. But the time we have, um, Sheldon, in my opinion, they were meaningful times and meaningful conversations. And I tell you, I'll take an hour of a meaningful conversation over, 3 months of just small talk. And I've always appreciated that about you. And you've influenced my life, and the opportunity to meet your family. I don't take for granted. I don't take that lightly. So thank you for coming up and meeting me with me in Idaho, and hanging out. And really enjoyed that, and enjoyed your family. Donna, who's online, she says, you are so. Oh, Flo says you're so humble, and powerful words. And Donna says, how to say no without guilt. How do you say no without guilt? Is, I think, Donna's question.
you know I think I'm personally, I'm the kind of guy that has to learn from his own mistakes, and learn my own lessons. And and I've can look back at so many times where I've said yes where I shouldn't have, and either flaked, fallen through, or given a subpar performance, or have not contributed at the level that I know I'm capable of.
Mm,
And I've realized that by saying no, I'm avoiding that. And by saying, if I'm saying yes to something that I shouldn't, I'm really being vain, and I'm not being a humble person at that point, because I'm cheating someone else out of the opportunity who does have the time or does have the resources to give 100%, and I don't at that moment.
Mm.
And I have to realize that it's okay that I don't have the time or energy to give 100% to that. Someone else does, and I need to say no in order for them to have a chance to say yes. You know, so that's how I justify that in my own mind, because I naturally want to be the one that does everything and help everybody and give. And a lot of times, if we're not strategic about it, it's to our own detriment.
Mhm.
And it's really to the detriment of the person that you said yes to, that you shouldn't have said yes to in the first place. You know,
Wow.
so yeah, that's how I justify it, like logically to myself,
Yeah.
where I'm okay with that. Where okay, hey, this makes sense that I'm saying no to this,
Mhm.
and saying no is actually in alignment with who I am as a person, not the opposite.
Wow, that's powerful. That's a great perspective. And it's just that one small shift in perspective that really makes all the difference in the world, whether you can say yes or no, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And if anyone listening to this is a giver, you know, that just constantly is saying yes, someone with a huge heart,
Mm.
it's our nature to say yes,
Mm.
and we have a hard time saying no. You know, we feel guilty about saying no. Um, but yeah, as I mentioned a couple minutes ago, it's my no is someone else's yes.
Love it. Love it. Donna says, that's awesome. Thank you. She put strategic giving. Love that. Love that. Uh, Flo says, I know he's being humble because, well, she sent this directly to me, but that's okay. I'm going to read it anyways. Being so humble because he didn't even mention being a rock star salesperson. So she has a question. What would you say makes you the best version of yourself?
I would say what makes me the best version of myself is having goals. You know, when I have goals put in writing for myself, whether it be for the day, for the week, for the month, for the year, and I consciously reprogram my mind, what I've learned is our reticular activating system.
Yeah.
When I'm reprogramming that daily with emotion and with clarity, that's when I'm my best. And it's not a conscious thing. You know, that to me, that's the beauty of what I've learned over these years, is that it's not something where I'm consciously looking for the right clues. The process I've learned from Lou Tice from the Pacific Institute, a gentleman who passed away some years ago, what I learned from a couple of their seminars is has to do with our reticular activating system and our subconscious mind. And I use affirmations to reprogram that, so that as I'm going about my day, the necessary information, the necessary people, in order to make my goals happen, become meaningful, and I notice them while I'm focusing on other things that are in front of me in my life. The right ideas, the right people, the right concepts, the right attitude, the right connections, picking up the right emails and ignoring the wrong ones. They all just happen. And it's a concept that I've been fortunate enough to share with many people over the years, is that all the tools you need to succeed are already there. You just haven't defined what success is, and you haven't reprogrammed yourself that that's who you are. So you're not noticing those things around you in your environment because they don't have any meaning to you. You know, so that's what I found when I'm at my best, is when I'm not gonna say on autopilot, but when I've reprogrammed my mind to expect those things for myself and for other people.
Flo says, nice. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
What's next, Sheldon? What's next for you? I mean, you've got this great family, you've got this great career, you're doing well. You've become this amazing human being in throughout all the circumstances of your life. You've used all of the good and the bad to help you become the person you are. What's next?
give more and share more. And
I would almost expect that from you, that statement. I mean, that's appropriate.
It's worked. I it's a concept that I'm happy living with, and I found that I'm very happy every day when I live that way. That whether I'm at a goal or most of the time on the way to a goal or on the way to achieving something or making something happen or being part of something happening, I found that when I'm living that way, I'm happy every day. And that was something for me in high school. Everyone asks a high school kid, so what do you want to do when you grow up? What do you want to do when you're done with school? What do you want to do when you're done with college? What do you want to do when you're done with trade school? And at 15, 16, 17, when you're in high school, that's like such a deep question. And my answer was, I just want to be happy. That was my answer way back. I just want to be happy. And, I went through like a good number of years where that wasn't the case. I was searching for happiness and searching for pleasure in short-term places that always were cheating myself from long-term fulfillment and long-term happiness. Yeah. So, that concept has been huge for me, and being able to share that with people, while I'm still able to relate to younger people, because of my age, I do my best to do a lot of mentoring here at our company with people that are open to it, and sharing with people in their like late teens, early mid 20s, and so forth, information that I know they're not learning in school, that most people like myself do not learn in school, or do not learn from home, or aren't around circles where positive thinking and goal setting is reality. So, doing my best to be relatable to those people and sharing with them, because ultimately, I look at what someone like Jim Rohn accomplished, which is, I know one of the things he expressed during his seminar that I went to was to be part of someone's testimony. And I wrote those kinds of things down, and I still have my journal from 2000 and September 2007, when I went to Jim Rohn's seminar, and he had us write down 50 goals. And here's my goals that I wrote down from my 13-year-old journal. And as the universe would have it, I'll share one goal that I wrote in there was to motivate and inspire thousands. And this is while I'm sitting at a seminar with 2,000-3,000 other people in a huge auditorium. And the seminar was more money than I had to my name. I had to borrow money from my dad to go, and borrow money for the flight and room and board, and the company invested half of it with me. And I'm just sitting there, some kid that's, barely above minimum wage, struggling at a new sales job, and being around people like that. And even that was towards the end of his life. I believe that was his last, or one of his last couple live seminars, that, something that he had worked on for decades, and sharing words that, wow, like that, look at the effect that had on the universe so far. And I'm just one of thousands and tens of thousands of people that studied and learned his materials and went to seminars. Yeah. And thinking that, wow, someone like that can do it, and that the concept is that simple, that all you have to do is share it, and that all you have to do is not worry what other people are thinking. It was huge. And to me, one of the coolest things about this journal that I have, this particular one, is I waited in line for however long it was after one of the days to get the journal signed by Jim Rohn. So I have my Jim Rohn signature here. And 10 years later, maybe 11 years later, I started going to Kyle Wilson's Inner Circle, got a chance to meet Kyle and become friends with him, and go to many of his classes. And he signed my journal for me, which to me was so cool. That everything came full circle. That, for me, waiting in line with thousands to get Jim to sign my journal, to sitting there one-on-one in a small group, talking to Kyle, shaking hands, sending messages and so forth, that, now everything came full circle 12, 13 years later, that now I have his autograph and his little note in my journal, which to me is awesome. Really special, and just so cool to be part of something like that.
That is very, very um, encouraging and inspiring to meet somebody like Jim Rohn, and then to meet his business partner and to become friends with those guys. Powerful, powerful. So Sheldon, as we wrap this up, I just want to tell you, brother, man, I appreciate you in my life. I appreciate your friendship. I love you as a brother. I appreciate your family, and I look forward to the next time that we get to be in the same room together and hang out. But even like this, you are always an inspiration and always an encouragement, and I'm grateful for you, your presence in my life.
Well, Bob, thank you so much, and the same kind words multiplied by 100 go back to you. Always a pleasure to get a chance to talk to you, and seeing you in Idaho was amazing, such a blessing, and meeting you at Kyle's group, everything for a reason, and just being in your circle is it's an honor. It really is for someone like you who carries yourself the way that you do and shares the way you do, and your heart is just second to none from what I've seen you post when traveling around to some of the tragedies that have happened. Just to be there, to me is just so inspiring. That even though we're in different parts of life and different phases of life, that I truly believe that that's why we connect the way that we do, is that you sharing your heart in your phase of life and with your experience. It looks different on the outside, and that's something I want to leave whoever's listening to this with, is that even though we might not look alike or be in the same situation or have the same background or be in the same spot or be able to give the same way or help the same way, that truly is what makes our world a better place. Amen. And it is by giving and sharing and caring, and so hopefully some of the things that I've learned, that I've been fortunate enough to share in today's thing, resonates with some people out there, and can be part of making your world a better place. So
absolutely. Well, I love you, brother. Thank you so much. Give the family a hug, and we'll get together here soon. This will be posted in the Facebook group. You'll be added to the Facebook group, so look for the invitation so that you can be a part of that. And then people feel free to contact and connect here in the Facebook group. But that being said, guys, get out there, make it a great week, and enjoy your next level. Thanks again, Sheldon.
Thanks so much, Bob.